Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of USA Up All Night. I'm your bedtime buddy, Rhonda, and have I got a terrific evening planned for you? Showgirls rollerblading in the nude? No better. I'm taking you to Fangoria, the #1 Monster Magazine's horror party. This Hollywood party should have plenty of gruesome makeup and creepy costumes. And that's just the agents. Tonight is also special because we have a Linnea Quigley Film Festival just for you. We'll be showing 2 of Linnea's most popular films, Vice Academy and Vice Academy 2. Plus, we'll be joining Linnea at the horror party. You know, if all Vice squads had women who look like Linnea on their side, crime would be cleaned up in a Leavenworth minute. After all, criminals would probably turn themselves in to get frisked by Linnea and her friends. Oh well, it's time for us to go to our first film because I've got to change it to something more appropriate for our horror party. Something that will scare you all. Oh, I know. I'll dress up as a nun. That should do it.
Hello and good evening, and welcome to the Bloody Binge Movie Podcast. Little bit of a different opening today. Usually I run the trailer of the movie we're going to watch, but unfortunately I could not download the trailer for the movie we are about to watch because it has been flagged as inappropriate on YouTube. So the original plan this week was to watch Moving Violations. It is a favorite of mine from the 80s. So I decided to go a different route because I could not find a full-length copy of Moving Violations, and the one copy that I have is buried in the back of a storage shed in Huber Heights, Ohio. So I decided, as of today, to go ahead and do Vice Academy. I was gonna wait on this one a little bit, but desperate times call for desperate measures. So we're going to go to 1989. We're going to watch Vice Academy today. We're going to deep dive Vice Academy today. And I hope you like the opening because the first time I ever watched Vice Academy was late night babysitting of friends' kids when I was like 13 years old, watching on USA Up All Night. I watched Vice Academy, and I guess you could say it ruined my fragile little mind, however you want to say it. But Up All Night, USA Up All Night ended up being one of my favorite shows to watch on Saturday nights when I was Friday and Saturday nights. I'm sorry, it came on both nights. While I was babysitting my friends' kids or even at home. That is how, I got to watch a lot of trauma movies. I got a lot of watch a lot of different style of horror and cult classics and things like that. But we're gonna dive into Vice Academy here in a minute. But of course, as usual, let's go ahead and tune in and start the show off with some haunt and horror news. Our first news story today is a sad one because it was just announced a couple of hours ago, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people have heard it. If they have not, apparently you have not turned on social media today. Morgan Spurlock, the Oscar-nominated director of the documentary Supersize Me, has passed away today at the age of 53 due to complications from cancer. He is, of course, known for his critical examination of fast food and consumerism. Spurlock's work has had a significant impact on public discourse about health and corporate responsibility. He died peacefully, surrounded by loved ones in New York. It's a sad loss. It was a fantastic documentary filmmaker. Whether you agree with his politics or anything like that, that's on you. But um, I actually own one of his. I don't own Supersize Me, surprisingly, but I own another one. He did a documentary in the probably late 2010s, um, right before Osama bin Laden was killed, and it was called "Where in the World is Osama bin Laden?" Where Morgan Spurlock actually traveled to these Middle Eastern countries, talked to them about their cultures and everything like that. The the impact of 9/11 on their cultures and their societies, and then went on and asked, "Hey, have you guys seen Osama bin Laden?" And the one place he refused to go was a mountain in Pakistan where I guess the rumor was that bin Laden was, and he just looked and said, "Nope," and turned around and walked away. But rest in peace, Morgan Spurlock. He did what he could to change the world. Unfortunately, because it's big business, it's not going to work. So let's turn on some haunt news. We actually got some haunt news this week as haunt Universal Orlando, and I think this story needs to be updated because I believe they added another one. But Universal Orlando has revealed the first two of 10 haunted houses coming to Halloween Horror Nights in 2024. The first big one was Slaughter Cinema 2. Um, that was announced. Yeah, a lot of S's there. Slaughter Cinema opened in 2018 as a house based on various fictional B movies set in the drive-in movie theater. This year's house will take guests through 8 fictional movies, and only the film Heavy Metal 3D was announced. Universal announced the maze and discussed it more in depth at their panel during Spooky Empire Orlando. That's one of the horror movie conventions I really do want to go to eventually. The other one they announced, Goblin's Feast, was teased earlier today on social media. The description reads, "Welcome to Goblin's Feast Tavern and visit the Ghost Village or the Goblin Village, where a lavish feast is being prepared for goblins, orcs, hobgoblins, and witches. And you're the main course." Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Orlando will have 10 haunted houses. The houses will mix IP with original stories, and so far both announcements are original stories. Basically, the best way to look at Universal Orlando is usually when they come when whatever movies are coming out this year being put out by Universal is what they'll make a house about. And then maybe a couple of like whatever the big ones is. Like they might bring Beetlejuice back because Beetlejuice is coming out this year. Um and certain things like Killer Clowns because Killer Clowns is getting popular again. But the event returns select nights from August 30th through November 3rd. Tickets are on sale now, starting at $82.99 for single night admission and $129.99 for express passes. And then there's like a bunch of tours you can do and things like that. So yeah, I mean, if who's excited, who isn't excited for Universal Orlando, or for Halloween Horror Nights? It's one of the greatest haunts that I've never been to. Moving on, Creepy Hollow Haunted Woods Spring Hill, Tennessee, has suffered some extensive damage during a tornado on May 8th. While owners Rocky and Debbie Frisch and their many animals could remain safe through the severe weather event, unfortunately, and their haunt, their home were destroyed. 13 years in the making, gone in 13 seconds, said Rocky in an interview with a local news station. The couple will not be able to return to their home at least until Christmas, and they hope they will be able to reopen Creepy Hollow Haunted Woods in 2025. A GoFundMe page has been organized in their honor, hoping to raise $50,000 to help mitigate the rebuilding costs. I will try to post uh, the GoFundMe on um, on the page on one of on my social media pages. And if you really want to donate, if you can donate or anything, and you really want the GoFundMe, please message me and I will gladly give it to you. Um, but yeah, that's always sad. Uh, it's always sad when a haunt has to close, no matter what it is, whether it be insurance reasons, fire, tornadoes. We actually lost in Ohio. We lost Carnage this year, and it doesn't look like they're going to come back. Basically because of money. I'm assuming it's because of money. They couldn't afford it, but it haunting people got to remember haunting is not a cheap endeavor. You have to put a lot of money into a haunt if you want to be successful. It's the definition of you got to spend money to make money. because people don't, people want that experience. People want the experience, especially now in a social media age where your queue lines and your stuff out front are going to get a lot more attention than what's in the haunt because you're not going to let people use their phones or bring their cameras into a haunt unless they're like like someone like Scare Factor who has their own YouTube channel and a huge following. But you're not going to let like random teenagers just walk around with their phones out because it's dangerous. It's a dangerous thing. You can't be taking pictures in haunted houses, so you got to set stuff up in the front, so that people can take pictures of that. It looks cool that they can take pictures and they want to post on their social media. But all right, let's see. Moving on. Party City has announced two new animatronics for this year's Halloween lineup, starting at a 9.7 foot tall Dr. Payne, the fire eater on stilts. He's going to retail at 325, and he is quite the sinister showman. With his neck stretched towards the sky, he appears to breathe fire into the night, and with bursts of light and smoke escaping his ghastly grin. The animatronic's eyes, mouth, and torch light up, and the piece is fog machine cap compatible. I could not find pictures of this stuff. The terrifying teddy bear skill crane, $250, appears to be standard claw game, but instead of using the claw to find a teddy bear, a petrifying plushie finds you instead. The piece is 5.7 feet tall, with a claw that moves side to side, and an evil-looking teddy bear that pops up to frighten unsuspecting trick-or-treaters. Neither animatronic is on sale yet, just yet, and just basically stay tuned to Party City's website for announcements and release details. Excuse me. So it has been We're going to move on to horror movie news now. It has been 15 years since Jason Voorhees has graced the silver screen in 2009's Friday the 13th remake. That was okay. I thought it was okay. I had no problem. I know a lot of people had problem with running Jason, but in that film, in that version, it was supposed to actually be a crazy guy living in the woods versus supernatural zombie guy that can barely move. Um, well, I guess Jason's never ever really barely been able to move, but he's not like dead. Basically, this guy was supposed to be moving on. Since then, the franchise has been mirrored in complicated legal issues that have prevented much of anything from happening. Even A24's much anticipated Crystal Lake TV show ran into a major speed bump recently, losing showrunner Brian Fuller. Well, recently we got some more bad news from the director of the original slasher classics, Sean Cunningham, who says we shouldn't expect a new movie in the series anytime soon. Speaking during a panel at Texas Frightmare Weekend via Creepy Catalog, Cunningham addressed the possibility of a new Friday the 13th movie, saying, "It is at least 3 years away." While the report is light on direct quotes, the outlet states that it doesn't seem to have much to do with the legal issues that have kept Jason locked up for years. Rather, it's an economic issue. Given how successful the recent Halloween and Scream movies have been, one assumes there is a fortune to be made with a new entry in this franchise. New Line Cinema, for what it's worth, owns the trademark for the Friday the 13th title. Meanwhile, original screenwriter Victor Miller won a legal battle for the rights for his original script, while Horror Incorporated and Cunningham control the rights to the other films. This just basically goes on. Yeah, that article's done. So basically, don't expect a new Jason movie anytime soon. Um, and we'll see who makes it and everything like that. It's just one of those complicated things where people can't get along. Where basically money gets in the way of creativity, and just people just can't get along to bring the fans what they want. All right, so Next story. I don't know if I agree with this one or not, but in the wake of Rob Zombie's direct-to-video movie The Munsters back in 2022, Universal has now announced 1313, a brand new small-screen reboot of the iconic television series. Developed and produced by James Wan's company Atomic Monster, the new Universal series is said to be a reimagining of the 1964 classic sitcom The Munsters that lives and breathes within the Universal Monsterverse. Did anybody like the Rob Zombie Munster movie? I could not get through it. I watched it. I think I ended up falling asleep during it. I could not get through it. Sherry Moon Zombie did an amazing job as Baby Firefly. She doesn't need to be in everything. Just she doesn't need to be in everything. Lindsay Anderson Beer will serve as the showrunner for 1313, and the title is, of course, a reference to the Munsters' address, 1313 Mockingbird Lane. Deadline notes in their report, the project is being developed by James Wan, Beer, and Ingrid Bisu for UCP, Atomic Monster, and Lab Brew, or LAB Brew, are the production companies. Executive producers Lindsay Anderson Beer, James Wan, Michael Clear, and Rob Hackett for Atomic Monster. Ingrid Bisu is a co-executive producer on the upcoming series. Yeah, just tell the rest of this. Just tell you want to revisit the series. Of course, it's still the original series is streaming on Peacock. The Monsters is streaming on Peacock, and that series ran for just 2 seasons between 1964 and 1966. Wow, I thought it ran longer than that. And a sequel television series titled The Munsters Today ran from 1988 to 1991. More recently, Brian Fuller's Mockingbird Lane reimagined the series for NBC, but never made it past the pilot episode because it was terrible. It wasn't good. While various actors have played the roles across the decades, the core of the Munsters has largely remained the same, with the various shows and movies documenting the wacky lives of the lovable family of monsters. And this is what does a dark reimagining entail? That just means it's probably going to be ruined again. I can we just be creative? Like just can we be creative, or do we got to really keep going back? Um, I'm tired of going back and redoing stuff that doesn't need to be redone. Um, and it's just getting bad, and especially with Bloomhouse coming out and doing it over and over and over again. Um, we'll see. We'll see what happens with it. Moving on, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, the game will be released on PC, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X slash S. Is it XS? I don't have an Xbox. So. On June 4th, and a brand new map has been shown off this afternoon. Based on a location of the movie. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and take a look at this. I got some gameplay footage for that. Hold on one second.
So
there you go. There's some gameplay footage of the new Killer Clowns game. But based on on a location of fans of the movie will be familiar with, downtown Crescent Cove has a wide-spanning open-air plaza, as well as tighter building interiors to promote varied gameplay. The team previews explore man-made and organic spaces while you maneuver around deserted vehicles strewn throughout. Take advantage of the higher points so you may peer over and through the avenues and alleyways. As you're making your way, that is a very terrible written article. You may discover the familiar police station or the biker's alley, giving you the movie experience and immersing you further into the Killer Clowns universe. Killer Clowns from Outer Space, the game, can be pre-ordered right now from the Steam Store, PlayStation Store, and Xbox Marketplace. The game has full cross-play support. Killer Clowns from Outer Space, the game, is a 3v7, 3 versus 7 asymmetrical multiplayer horror game based on the cult horror classic film. When murderous alien clowns come to feed on the quiet town of Crescent Cove, the locals must work together to fight back and survive the invasion. Players can team up either as clowns or humans, choosing from a variety of character classes to explore an expansive, ever-changing map with creepy surprises waiting around every corner. Take on the role of the iconic Killer Clowns, cooperate in a team of 3 players, utilize unworldly abilities, hunt humans with zany weapons, and plan your alien invasion to harvest the population of Crescent Cove successfully. Fight back as a team of 7 brave citizens of Crescent Cove. Explore the city for valuable loot and weapons, avoid getting captured by clowns, and try to survive the alien invasion. Developed by TerraVision Games and Ilphonic, this playful, panic-inducing action experience faithfully recreates the atmosphere of the iconic movie and aims to stir up the asymmetrical multiplayer horror genre in multiple ways. The game is being developed as a live service title with multiple content updates planned for post-launch. I've been looking forward to this game since last year, and it looks great. It's no, it's a tech. I think it didn't say Gun Media. I think Texas Chainsaw is when it was made by the people who made the Friday the 13th game. Which again, Friday the 13th was fun. It was very fun. It was a lot of fun at first, but then people kept exploiting all the glitches, hiding where they weren't supposed to be able to hide and everything like that. And it just became boring. And then Jason was OP and overpowered, and it just got boring after a while. So hopefully this game will be a lot more fun. Looks like you can actually defend yourself against the clowns, which is a plus. So let's moving on. I only got a couple more stories, I think. Director Eric Mathis of Grimehouse Films and Drake Tier of Tier Mathis Productions have unleashed the trailer for their upcoming horror movie Infernal, said to be a thrilling, heavy, metal-infused Faustian tale. The team promises to deliver a unique blend of horror, metal music, and monstrous mayhem that will leave audiences on the edge of their seats. Having wrapped production, Infernal is now in its final stages, and the team has launched a finishing funds campaign on Indiegogo. At this time, they are 63% of their way to their goal. So before I read the synopsis, let's go ahead and take a look at the trailer for Infernal.
Dark Lord, fallen angel, hear our call. We are but humble servants who beg for your favor.
Where are you going?
Find some more Sacrifice albums to add to my collection.
Want to hear some real music like Journey or Skinner?
There are only 666 copies of this made. This record was used to summon demons.
What the fuck is that? Let's make a deal. Gamble for our souls.
You must answer this challenge within 13 hours.
All you need to do is retrieve the blade
where heavy metal comes from?
What do you guys think of that? It looks like it's going to be a gore fest with some really creative monsters in it and that, but it looks fun. Looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Having wrapped production, Infernal is now in its final stages, and the team has launched a finishing funds campaign on Ego. That I already read all that. Infernal follows the story of 4 friends, 2 of whom are undead and 1 a pig demon from hell, as they race against time to outsmart the devil himself after a summoning ritual goes disastrously wrong. In a desperate fight to save their souls, these friends must navigate a nightmarish landscape filled with heavy metal fury and demonic terror in order to find the Metal Blade, the only thing that can send the devil back to hell. Eric Matthew previews there. I really wanted this film to be different and unlike anything else people are making right now. I wanted to combine heavy metal and horror, but also have a great story with awesome characters that were well developed and that you actually care about. The film is almost like an over-the-top adventure like The Goonies, with all of the elements of horror and some outrageous comedy that I really think audiences are going to like. It is not just another low-budget indie film. The production value, the acting, the special effects, and the story are really pro-level and elevated. Infernal really looks and plays like we spent 10 times what we actually spent on this. We are all very proud of what we accomplished. The cast for Infernals includes Courtney Gaines from Children of the Corn, Pancho Moller from Rob Zombie's 31 and 3 from Hell. That would be the little person in the movies. Which, if you haven't seen 31, 31 is actually good. I really enjoyed Rob Zombie's 31. It almost was like a horror movie version of Running Man. Sky Elabar, the Greasy Strangler, and Mark Torgel, Melvin himself from the Toxic Avenger, with Clint Hummel as the devil himself. Infernal stands out with its jaw-dropping special effects crafted by the legendary Joe Castro, known for his groundbreaking work in indie horror. The team also, it looks like a really, really fun movie. I'm definitely gonna have to keep my eye out for it. Again, if you want the Indiegogo address, just let me know. I'll go ahead and I'll either message me or make a comment under one of the videos. I'll try to remember to post the link for that and the link for the GoFundMe for the haunt that pretty much lost everything in a tornado over the winter. So this week there's 3 movies coming out this week. I've only got 2 trailers because the other one didn't really interest me. I know some of you are probably thinking right now, "Hey, Steven, there was a movie that came out this week, or a trailer that dropped this week that for a very popular, exciting movie that's coming out." And I'm gonna tell you right now, I am not playing the new Beetlejuice trailer. I'm not gonna do it. That shit's like 2.5 minutes long, and when it comes to like these indie trailers and that, I'll play them. But when a mainstream movie goes over a minute and a half doing a trailer, you're pretty much getting the entire movie in the trailer. All the cool like effects, all the cool comedy, all the funny comedy, all the cool action, all the good kills in a horror movie. They add them all in, and it's just stupid. Now there's no reason for me to go watch it. So I don't want to risk that with Beetlejuice 2. Beetlejuice is one of my favorite movies of all time. So I would prefer not to ruin it for anybody else who doesn't want to watch the trailer. So we're not going to be showing the Beetlejuice trailer. However, we're going to watch this first trailer for In a Violent Nature, which comes out this week. I believe it said in theaters.
get too hung up on reason. They just keep killing.
So, what do you guys think of this movie? I know it's been a lot of people have seen the trailer for it already, and a lot of people have been talking about it. From what I understand, it's a movie that's basically from the killer's point of view. And it's gonna be it's almost like what was that? Behind the Mask, the Rise of Leslie Vernon, except with a little less comedy involved. Um, I'm interested to see how they play it up. It looks, like I said, it looks good. And an interesting take because you never really get the serial killer's point of view from that. So we'll take a look at that. Hopefully, we'll get to watch that here sooner than later. And finally, the other movie coming out this week, I believe this is coming to DVD. I didn't see anywhere it's going to be streaming or anything. But let's take a look at Deer Camp 86.
The buck stops here.
Come on, let's get to camp before dark, Buck.
Tough titties, my liver's itching.
Let's get those drinks in the air and make a toast to the high!
All right, go. Pulled one deer tag before we even got out of the truck. They smell that. Oh!
You boys were at the Peace Pipe last night, weren't you? Bartender was found murdered this morning. Too many of our girls go missing. Outsiders come up here and take more than venison.
We did not come up here to get in any trouble, Your Honor.
Nope. There's no hiding from the sins committed on these lands.
Going? I'm going back to Detroit, where it's safe.
That looks a little intense. That looks like it's going to be a really fun one to watch. So I'll be keeping an eye out for that. Hopefully, it's streaming. If not, I'll have to see how to purchase a copy of the movie. Because it looks good. It looks really good. Looks like a creative. I don't know if it's a demon or a monster, alien, slasher. I have no idea, but I'm looking. I want to watch that movie, so I will be on the lookout for it. So that's gonna do it for our news this week. A lot of, like I said, a lot. The further we get into the summer, the closer to Halloween we get, the more haunted house news we're gonna get. Hopefully, we can get a lot more updates with Universal Studio, with Halloween Horror Nights. We get some updates with Busch Gardens, SeaWorld, and Hallow Scream, some Kings Island or Kings Dominion Cedar Fairs, Halloween, horror, what is it? Halloween Haunt, I think is what they call it. I haven't been in a couple of years. But yeah, the closer we get, the more we'll see. Moving on, let's talk about our movie this week, Vice Academy. This is a movie I first watched, like I said, early in the early 90s, a couple of years after it was released. I watched it on USA Up All Night, hosted by Ron Shear, and at one point hosted by Gilbert Gottfried. A lot of people my age got their schlock, I guess you could call it, or their camping movies and that from watching USA Up All Night. Now, of course, you didn't get the full movies because there's a lot of nudity and a lot of stuff that they weren't. They allowed a lot more back in the '90s on TV than they do now, but still. Um, the movie came out it released in 1989. Let me get to where I need to be. There it is. Put out by director. It was written and directed by Rick Sloan. Rick Sloan has brought us other movies, like Hobgoblins, The Visitants, Good Girls Don't. Um, he went on to direct Vice Academy, basically every, or at least produce every Vice Academy movie out there. Um, and he also went to write and direct them as well. There are 6 total Vice Academies that have been made. That's really what he's known for: the Vice Academy movies, Babe Watch, A Forbidden Parody, Hobgoblins, Hobgoblins 2. Um, and just yeah, he's just well known for basically independent, low budget schlock, which is fine. It's great. Um, Moving on to the cast, we have Linnea Quigley. And if you don't know who Linnea Quigley is, I think you need to ask yourself just how much of a horror movie fan you really are. She has been in pretty much everything since that, in the 80s. Most notable for, of course, for her roles in Night of the Demons, Silent Night, Deadly Night, and of course as Trash in Return of the Living Dead. She does that really sexy uh, graveyard dance on the tombstone in the middle of the graveyard, and just looks gorgeous doing it. We have She is playing Linnea Quigley is playing Dee Dee, Ginger Lynn, formerly Ginger Lynn Allen, a well-known porn star from the '80s, plays Holly Wells. Karen Russell as Shawnee, Jane Hamill as Miss Devonshire, Ken Abram is Dwayne. Ken Abram, I know that name. Let me see what else he's been in. Uh, Last Comic Standing, America's Next Top Model, Jersey Shore. He's been an editor on a lot of that stuff. Let's go to his acting. Of course, it does that. He's been on Look like he's been on NYPD Blue and a few other things. Like one episode of stuff. On a lot, and I mean a lot of low budget horror movies back in the day. Hobgoblins, of course. Girlfriend from Hell, Living Dolls, Terror Night, things like that. Um, we have Jean Carroll as Queen Bee. Um, what has she been in? Mostly Guiding Light, 157 episodes of Guiding Light. Jeez. So she's definitely a soap opera actress. She's got a lot of other stuff on here. Um, but yeah, she plays the Queen Bee. And finally, Tamara Clatterbuck as Tinsel. I'm sorry, we got Viper. Somebody named Viper as Desiree. Was this Viper? Okay, she was a porn star as well. She's out of the business. Yeah. I'm not gonna read these names because, yeah, that might get me in a little bit of trouble. Um. So, yeah, it's you're basically your typical '80s schlock movie. Um, Rated 4.3 out of 10 on IMDb. So let's go ahead and start diving in to Vice Academy. So the movie opens in front of a truck stop diner, and it's like a little tiny, tiny building. Like there's no friggin' way this is a real truck stop. Like if you looked at it, there's no trucks parked there. It's like just a building in the middle of nowhere that just says truck stop diner on it. But it opens in front of a truck stop diner and there's a red hatchback parked right out, like just right beside the door. So any illegal activity this car is obviously doing is like right outside the fucking door of the truck stop. And it's basically there's a guy named Snake waiting inside of the car. This other guy shows up I'm gonna call him Brown Jacket because I don't think we ever get his name. Um, he gets in and Snake jumps on him for being late, or yells at him for being late. Then he says, and Snake says he wants to see the stuff. Browncoat hands him a bag, which is basically it's obviously cocaine. And Snake does the normal thing you do when you're handed a bag of cocaine, and he puts his finger in and licks it because God knows you're supposed to taste cocaine to see if it is cocaine. Um, Snake says it's top grade stuff and asks if he can get him more, if the Browncoat can get him some more. Browncoat says he has a new source that is unlimited. So another car pulls up, and Snake starts freaking out because he doesn't know who's in the car. He doesn't know what the car is from or anything. He basically there's a blonde girl in the car that we find out is Holly. Uh, he asks Holly, and basically he doesn't know who it is, but he asks Holly what she wants, and she just says she's looking to party. Snake says, "Ah, there's no party here. I don't know what you're talking about." She turns up the music in her car really loud, and Snake and the brown coat guy are basically, "Hey, what the fuck are you doing? Are you trying to wake up the neighborhood? Are you trying to like tell everybody we're here? Like what the fuck?" They tell her to turn it down, and they keep telling her to leave like over and over. Like, look, just get out of here. Just get it. She says she's just looking to party, and that she has money on her. And if they won't tell her, and if they'll tell her where the party is, she'll leave. She'll turn the music down and leave. No problem. They see the money and their ears, their eyes perk up a little bit. And they say, "Oh, yeah, you know what? We're wrong. We are having a party here." Snake says he may, and basically Snake says, "Yeah, I just forgot the invitation. And Snake says he may just let her party with them. Shows her the drugs. Holly pulls a gun out and tells them that they are busted. Cue the credits and some amazing 80s hair music. So that's how your movie starts. How basically drug dealers getting busted. We open back up on another brick building that says police station on it. It's obviously an old building. Um, the words police station and like the year are like engraved in the side of the building. It's obvious. It's kind of obvious that the building is in, you know, not in movie time. Probably an abandoned building. Uh, but then we didn't cut to three people running across the field. They're late for class. That ends up being our heroes, Dee Dee, Shawnee, and Dwayne. So then we go into the classroom. Miss Devonshire goes to basically take the role for the class, and Holly's there from the night before, and she says that her bus from the night before went off without a flaw. Miss Devonshire, says that's great, but we never studied their setup or operation, and they never learned who their major supplier is. Holly says since her father is the chief of police, he gave her all of the inside info she would need, and that since she took the dealers down all by herself, then maybe she should get a little extra credit, in the classroom. So basically, we're learning that Holly's the teacher's pet, her dad's the chief of police, and all that good stuff. So you're probably already not supposed to like Holly, the great Ginger Lynn Allen. Miss Devonshire says she's warned her before about not going and doing these things by herself. Holly says there were her father had units, at basically within every block of the business of basically of the truck stop, and would have the black and whites would have been there in a moment's notice if she had let out one little scream. Miss Devonshire basically says the same thing we all do. It's like, well, that's an expensive operation to catch one drug dealer. Holly says her daddy said that. Holly's like, yeah, my dad said that too before I talked it over with him. Miss Devonshire says she will remember that next time she needs some expenditures. Holly has a full report from last night and hands it to Mrs. Devonshire, to Miss Devonshire, and then Dee Dee, Shawnee, and Dwayne all enter the room. Dee Dee bumps into Holly, and basically you can already tell these two don't like each other. Miss Devonshire asks if they have an excuse for being late, and Dwayne just goes, "Yeah, well, Class started without us? And Miss Devonshire's not amused. She tells them they have to show some more interest in class, and showing up late. And showing up late is going to make it hard for them to join the force. Dwayne makes a really good point here, though, when he says, "Don't most vice arrests happen at night?" As you know, the vice squad usually goes after prostitutes and sex crimes and drugs, and a lot of that stuff does get dealt with at night. So why do we really, basically, why do we really need to be up early in the morning if we're supposed to be out at night trying to arrest people? Miss Devonshire says that Vice is a 24/7 job, and she says while they were sleeping last night, Holly made yet another arrest, making her quota the highest in the history of the class. Dee Dee, who of course, like I said before, is Linnea Quigley, says, "Big deal. If I had an entire police force at my beck and call, I'd have the highest arrest record as well." Holly looks a little irritated on that one, but Mrs. Devonshire says graduation is less than a week away, and they have to make 10 arrests. There's a 10 arrest quota before they can graduate and join the force. Miss Devonshire announces they are about to learn, and basically she starts the lesson. They're about to learn how to subdue and disarm an assailant. She calls up Shawnee and Dwayne to come. She calls up Shawnee and Dwayne to be volunteers. She hands Dwayne a fake gun. I'm talking like it's the black gun with like the little orange dart, little like suction dart that used to be in the end of it. And tells him to rob Shawnee. So basically, Dwayne puts the gun and goes, "Give me all your money." Mrs. D, Miss Devonshire asks Shawnee, "Well, what would you do? What would you do to defend yourself here?" So naturally, Shawnee pulls her top down, showing her breasts. We get our first breast shot, our first female nudity at 9 minutes and 33 seconds into the movie, and she basically just like reveals her breast and just takes the gun away in the confusion. Miss Devonshire does not like that tactic and says this is hardly the way to do it. She says men have several. She basically gives the gun back to Dwayne, and it tells everybody that men have several pressure points in their body, and then Miss D then just go ahead and like just knees Dwayne right in the dick, and he drops the gun, of course. And everybody, you hear everybody in the class go, "Oh!" Holly raises her hand and says, "Is it okay if everybody tries that method?" And Mrs. Devonshire's like, "Oh yeah, come on up. Don't worry about it. Come on." So every girl in the class, and there's about 10, 15 girls in this class, just start taking turns kneeing Dwayne right in the dick. They all think, and the whole time she's going, "Very good." Mrs. Devonshire's just, "Very good, ladies. Very good. You're doing really good." Oh, no, you go to the back of the line and do it again. You got to show me the right way to do this. And she basically says that they're going to keep this up until everyone has it correctly. Well, Dwayne just ends up passing out. The class starts to exit the room. I guess they're getting ready to go outside to the obstacle course. And we cut to the chief of police, who asks for a moment of his daughter's time to do a lineup right then and there. The guys from the night, basically, he just pulls in four people who are cuffed. There's no lineup room or anything like that. Apparently, we just drag in four random guys that are all handcuffed together. And you can see on the end, just the two guys from the night before. And the one guy's calling her a pig, a bitch, and basically just sits and looks. She goes, threatens her because they ruined. She ruined their operation. Now she has not pointed to either one of these guys yet, and they're like, "Oh, this bitch fucking ruined my took $1,000 from me and ruined my shit." Okay, dude, I guess you don't want to get off of this. Holly asks her dad which ones she's supposed to point at, and he tells her the two on the left. She points to the two on the left, and the dealers make a break for it, and they actually get away. They just fucking run away. That's it. They run away. They leave. All that good stuff. Holly gets mad at her dad for ruining all her hard work and letting the robbers get away. We now cut to basically we go out to the obstacle course. I wrote Mrs. D to make it easier, but Mrs. Devonshire is above the girls. She's on this like platform watching the girls as they run the course, and it's just like a basic course with like a wall with the rope on it. You pull yourself over, like a couple of hurdles, some tires to run through. Um, and we just basically get some footage of of all the girls in the class running the course, doing different obstacles and that. And then Dwayne is laying at the end of the tires, looking up their shorts as they run by. Mrs. Devonshire sees this, and of course she's not amused. So she climbs down from her perch, walks over, grabs him, and she tells him one more stunt like this, and they will go ahead and they'll try to disarm the assailant lesson again. We then cut as the girls are all sitting on bleachers, and apparently it's wrestling time because she starts pairing people together, and the two girls wrestle around a little bit, basically struggle against each other and try to get the other one down. Um, Next, the first two go, and then the one girl gets the other girl down, fine, whatever. Dwayne and Shawnee match up next, and Shawnee just puts him in a headlock and like rubs her tit on his head, and then Dwayne, of course, apparently Dwayne's not making it look convincing enough, so Mrs. Devonshire comes over, puts him in the headlock, and then knees him in the dick again. Now it's Dee Dee and Holly's turn to pair up, and again, like I said, these two don't like each other. They make it obvious they don't like each other. But Holly starts talking shit, and Dee Dee says, "Look, isn't that your father?" Holly goes, "Where?" And she just punches her right in the coochie. Holly goes down, Dee Dee wins. So now we cut over to the firing range where Mrs. Devonshire is giving a lesson on shooting. She tells Shawnee that she has 6 shots to make them all count. And of course, when she hands her the gun, she accidentally fires it, scares the class back a little bit. So now she has 5. Shawnee shoots again, and you hear like the tink as it breaks some glass somewhere. Shoots again, and you hear just the dog go yipe, and basically, I'm just kind of they make it seem like she shoots a dog. Another guy, and a guy screams, and she goes, "I'm sorry." And then another one ricochets. She shoots again with a 5th shot, and it ricochets around. And finally, she has 1 shot left. She hits the target between the eyes. And Mrs. Devonshire's impressed because this week it was only 1 out of 6. She's and that Shawnee's getting better at this. So now we go back to the classroom where Mrs. Devonshire is going to teach a class on makeup. Mrs. Devonshire says that oftentimes they have to sometimes pose as prostitutes in their line of work, and pimps don't like it when their whores have to go and take a long time to put makeup on. She calls up Shawnee and Dee Dee as volunteers, and Holly doesn't like this because she's the teacher's pet. She always wants to be called as a volunteer. And Holly basically says, "Wouldn't it be more beneficial to call up someone who doesn't already look cheap?" Miss Devonshire has Dee Dee time. She hands her a stopwatch and has her timer while she puts some makeup on Shawnee. Mrs. Devonshire completes it in 21 seconds, and it looks pretty damn good. It looks like it's like a prostitute makeup from the 80s. Mrs. Devonshire has Shawnee, basically has Dee Dee sit in the chair and has Shawnee practice on Dee Dee. Shawnee pretty much just smears her lipstick on her face, on Dee Dee's face. We cut to the bathroom where Shawnee and Dee Dee are taking off. They're basically wiping the makeup off in the class, and Holly is in there. Shawnee and Dee Dee say they only go out at night for a good time, and Holly basically gives them shit for it. As they're fixing their makeup, Dee Dee basically walks behind Holly and just taps her on the back, like going, "Good job." Well, while she's doing this, of course, she puts a sign on her back. She tapes the sign to Holly's back that says "Vice Cop." I lost my place. Hold on. We go. Now we cut over. Holly is back outside the same truck stop from the night before, wearing a tight dress, and doesn't realize that the sign is on her back still. She calls her father and starts whining about nobody going up to her, while Dee Dee and Shawnee are in the background laughing at her. We cut over to Dee Dee and Shawnee walking down the street. And they find a woman who's basically she's in the corner crying. She's obviously got her just got the shit beat out of her. She's got bruises on her face and that. Which really good makeup for the bruising. They did a really good job with the bruising for the makeup for this chick. They offer to help her if she tells them what happened. Um, Basically, she says they tell her that they're cops, and she doesn't believe them. Obviously, turns out her name is Cherry Pop, and she ran away at 15 years old and became one of the highest paid porn queens out there. Her words, not mine. She recently tried to get out of the industry and started making her own workout tapes. The people she worked for didn't like that and told her to stop making those tapes and she needed to get back to porn. Jerry told him the director basically tells Shawnee and Dee Dee that the director hired someone to do this to her. Dee Dee says she should come with them to the station, down to the station, and fill out a report, which makes basically Cherry flips the fuck out, and saying how she's scared of these people and they'll kill her and all that stuff. Cherry runs away crying. Um, then we move over to the girls are sitting on a bench now. Dee Dee and Shawnee are sitting on a bench talking about having to grow up already. It was like a quick scene. They show up in class where pairs of girls basically they show up in class where they're telling Mrs. Devonshire what they're going to do to catch criminals. The first two girls basically they're going undercover. They're going undercover to investigate phony roller derby game matches. Um, Good luck with that. The next one basically they're going to shut down a Mexican donkey show. Which, if you don't know what a Mexican donkey show is, you just look it up. I'm not going to tell you. Then Dee Dee and Shawnee come to the front and they tell Mrs. Devonshire that they learned about a porn company that hires underage girls. Miss Devonshire doesn't believe them, but offers them some equipment for their operation. First, it's a fake resume. Mrs. D tells them just tape a picture to the back of it and turn it in. She reminds them that they do need. She does remind them they need solid evidence before an arrest can be made. They need to catch everyone in the act. Mrs. Devonshire says there is one other thing they can use, and Shawnee just looks and goes, it just looks like a whore purse. Well, it is a whore purse, but it has a lipstick that simulates gunfire, throat spray that sounds like a police siren. And then there's these earring transmitters where one girl wears one earring that it transmits to the other girl who's wearing the other one, and it doesn't come into play later. We cut to the girls and Dwayne driving in a gray van, and they arrive right outside the porn company, like literally right outside the door. Dee Dee is the one going undercover in the videos, while Dwayne and Shawnee stay in the van. Dee Dee goes inside where she meets. I'm assuming it's the owner. We don't learn this guy's name either. He's either the owner or like a casting director or something. She says, "Hey, I want to be in a movie." He goes, "All right, get on your back and let's see what you can do." Dee Dee tells him any work she does is a full day's pay. So unless he breaks out the checkbook, he better just go ahead and keep his clothes on. He tells her he was just kidding. He looks over her resume, which she says is quite impressive. She said, he asked her, basically, "Hey, what is it? What is the one thing you won't do?" You know, which she says, "I don't do animal stuff." Basically, he goes, "Well, according to this, you do animal stuff. You do all the animal stuff in this one movie." She goes, "Oh yeah, well no, it's been a while." And then she says, basically, she doesn't do S&M. Which again, the resume calls her a liar. It's because the resume says she loves it. Obviously, basically, it's kind of obvious now. Dee Dee didn't read this resume before turning it in. We cut back outside where a guy pulls up on a motorcycle, and we learn that this is Chuck. Shawnee is essentially wet seeing this guy. It got really damp in that. It got really moist in that van. Let's put it that way. Um, motorcycle, basically, we learn this guy is Chuck. Chuck enters the building without even looking at the van. Like, apparently the van doesn't exist to him. He introduced, the casting director or the casting guy introduces Chuck Long to Dee Dee Fluffer. Dee Dee is replacing the last actress, the actress that he normally works with because that other actress just turned 19, and he has Dee Dee and Chuck read some dialogue from a script like that's only 12 pages long. It's basic dialogue. Dee Dee gets the job. Chuck leaves and tells Dee Dee he'll see her. Like basically, instead of saying "I'll see you later," it's like "I'll see you when you're back later." Dee Dee is like infatuated with Chuck. I mean, just falling in love with him immediately. Um, that he could do no wrong. We now cut basically to the shoot where they're basically preparing for the shoot. Dee Dee says she needs she's a little nervous. So she needs to go to the next room and read a few lines. But basically, they all hear it as, "Oh, she's going to go do lines." Okay. In the next room, Dee Dee starts looking around, starts searching the room, and she basically finds a book with the contract with Cherry Pop, and the contract clearly says that she is 15. Um, they tell her, basically, they tell Dee Dee to try to grab it without them noticing. Well, it's a huge problem because it's a large book and Dee Dee's in her underwear. So, yeah. Dee Dee meets Desiree, the director. Desiree gives her a speech about, women empowerment and everything like that. How she's great, happy that, um, that she's there and that they will, that her females in her porn movies are meant to be role models and, stuff like that. Dee Dee goes, "Oh, that's encouraging." She walks away. She tells the couple to take their places. She looks at Chuck and goes, "Degrade the shit out of her." During the scene. Um, in the van, Shawnee wants to go make the bus, but Dwayne basically distracts her and goes, "Hey, have you heard the new severe tire damage tape?" And apparently, it's Shawnee's favorite band. And instead of listening, do what they're supposed to be doing by listening, they basically start listening to the tire damage tape, the severe tire damage tape, and they uh instead of listening to the headphones that basically have Dee Dee on them. Back inside, they begin shooting the scene. Dee Dee's dusting a lamp and the bell rings. Dee Dee asks who it is, and Chuck says he's a horny stud and tells her to open up and let him in so he can rape her. What the fuck? Like, that went dark really quick. Dee Dee literally rips the fucking door off the hinges. Desiree tells Dee Dee she's supposed to be scared of him, not so excited she breaks the fucking door. She tells them to take it from where they left off, and Dwayne and Shawnee are still jamming in the van. Dee Dee tries to make excuses to not do the scene, but when basically Chuck pulls her into his arms, she fucking melts. And she's like, "I'll be alright." She melts, and she just melts into his arms. They start filming again, and Chuck says she shouldn't open the door to strangers. They start the scene, and the guy from earlier has cue cards that say "moan louder," "fall on bed," "degrade her more." Casting guy from earlier tells Desiree that their sources tell them a vice unit may try to shut them down, and asks who the officer may be. Excuse me, had to sneeze there. Desiree says they worked with this entire crew before, and they can trust them. Duty asks, or then Dude asks, what about the new actress? Desiree says, "Are you kidding me? Look at her." Dwayne and Shawnee, hold on. All right, so Dwayne and Shawnee finally realize that they have completely forgot about Dee Dee. They grab their guns and enter the building, thinking Dee Dee was in trouble because all they could hear was just her moaning. They arrest Chuck. They bust in. They arrest Chuck, Desiree, and the guy from earlier. Chuck says he feels used and violated because he didn't realize Dee Dee was a cop. Dee Dee tells Chuck to shut up because she may be able to get him full immunity. Well, he shuts right the fuck up. They load the entire crew with no handcuffs, by the way, no handcuffs for them, into the van and they take them to jail. We cut to Dee Dee's place where she has taken, basically, she took Chuck. She brought Chuck with her. She takes Chuck home. She handcuffs him to the sink and says it's time to get back to work. And she just rips her coat off, and she is in just her panties and fishnets. And basically, we get kind of a sex scene between Chuck and Dee Dee. It's basically her pretending to ride him. We then cut back to the school, and they cut to the obstacle course where the class is sitting on some wooden bleachers, and Dwayne, Dee Dee, and Shawnee are all just basically discussing uh, the scene from the scene from earlier the night before, arresting all those people. Holly walks up in her cheerleader outfit. Dee Dee says to tell her what, basically she wants to tell her the news about their bust. Holly says while Dee Dee was sleeping, and Holly was busting up a high school drug ring and got 4 arrests. Dee Dee tries to tell Holly that while she was playing with kids, Dee Dee and her team arrested 8 people from the porn bust. Uh, then Mrs. Devonshire walks up and asks Dee Dee about her arrest. Mrs. Devonshire says that in the report it says Dee Dee had sex with the male lead before his arrest, and Mrs. Devonshire asks how can Dee Dee's testimony how is Dee Dee's testimony going to look in court when it comes out she had sex before she made with the main star before she made the arrest? Mrs. Devonshire says they may as well just let the entire operation go right now. Dwayne steps forward and says Mrs. Devonshire can't entirely blame Dee Dee for this because Dwayne and Shawnee were late making the arrest. Mrs. Devonshire calls them all a disgrace and tells Holly tells Dee Dee to tell her again how she's going to be teacher's pet. Holly says she only had to do a few chores for her arrest and asks what she had to do. Had to do a few cheers for her arrest and ask what she had to do. Dee Dee says you're right, Holly. I should have left the case to you because you make a better whore than anyone in class. So basically, up to this point, they have to release the porn people because they can't hold them due to a lack of evidence. And apparently, these are fighting words. Anybody calling Holly a whore, these are fighting words because now Holly and Dee Dee go into full-blown catfight mode. And I'm talking, it is a beautiful 1980s girl fight that used to be so fun to watch back in the 80s and 90s until they started adding martial arts into these things. But basically, Holly hits Dee Dee, and then they grab each other's hair, and they fight. Basically, they struggle around the obstacle course, pushing and shoving. Holly throws Dee Dee into the hurdle, and then the girls hit the ground. They start rolling around for a little bit. They hit the tires. The entire time, Mrs. Devonshire's telling them, break it up. This is against school rules. And during the whole time when they're rolling around, we get a lot of panty shots from both girls. They're both in skirts. I'm gonna break it up. Dee Dee grabs a tire and just shoves it over Holly's head, who just immediately pushes it off. The tire comes off, and they just keep rolling onto the tires. They come apart, stand up, they square up again, and to do the hair pulling thing, where they just each grab each other's hair and start pulling. And Miss Devonshire finally decides to go do something and break it up. Mrs. Devonshire basically says she has a special assignment for Dee Dee and her team, which is basically Dee Dee, Shawnee, and Dwayne. Mrs. Devonshire says the 8 arrests from the night before, now they cannot be counted towards their quota. So now they're back to zero. But she has a way to make it up before graduation the next day. And Mrs. Devonshire says there's a prostitution ring that they can break up as long as it is done by the book. Holly tells Mrs. Devonshire that her father has been working on the prostitution ring for months, and every time they send an officer in, they're never seen again. They're never seen or heard from again. That the chief has lost 5 people already, and Mrs. Devonshire says, "Yeah, I know." We cut over to the police station where the chief is about to go let the porn people go, and then Cherry Pop walks in with some sunglasses on and that. She says word on the street is you just arrested a porn company. The chief says, yeah, but he's about to let them go because of a technicality. Cherry says that won't be necessary because she wants to testify. She shows them the bruises on her face, and she hands them a book, and it's basically the names of people who were going to see the Queen Bee. We cut to Dwayne and the girls driving in their gray Ford van. They see a prostitute and they pull over. Dwayne decides he's going to go up and talk to her. Like I said, they send Dwayne over and remind him that he needs to get a price out of her or they can't arrest her. So he goes and he starts talking to her, and then Shawnee decides it's taking too long, and she decides to walk herself over there. The prostitute gets angry about this. Because it's almost like someone's encroaching her territory. Shawnee tells David that whatever the hooker is charging him, she'll throw in a free continental breakfast. Yeah. The prostitute asks if he's looking for fun or a short order cook. The prostitute says she'll throw in a dozen donuts. And Shawnee says, well, I'll do it for you. I'll do it for $10 cheaper. The prostitute says that's not fair because she normally makes 40. Where's the, but she'll do it for 30. That's all they need. They arrest the hooker and they throw her in the back of the van. We found out this hooker's name is Tinsel. Another prostitute shows up. Dwayne goes over again and asks if she's working or watching the stars. She says the only time she watches the stars is when she when she's on her back. Sparkle, the hooker's this prostitute's name, asks if she's really ready to gaze up at if he's ready to gaze up at the stars. Shawnee walks up again, and they basically do the same thing. Sparkle says she's charging 40, and I'm not. Well, Sparkle says she's $40, take it or leave it, and they have arrested, and basically they go and arrest Sparkle because she, So now they arrested both Sparkle and Tinsel. Dwayne says they need to start arresting a larger group of people instead of one at a time. They drive around searching, and all of a sudden they just happen upon a laundromat, and they're like, "Oh yeah, there it is. That's the front." How the fuck do you know it's a laundromat? How do you know what's good? Like, it's a laundromat. You can't just drive up and not without knowing what it is. Basically, he says there it is, a laundromat posing as a front for prostitution. Tinsel from the back says, "Oh no, they found it." How the fuck did he know exactly where he was? Or how the fuck did he know exactly where it was? Dwayne says he needs a special cover for this one, and we cut inside to where Dwayne walks in wearing a sheet, wearing a literal towel on his head, and doing his best Middle Eastern accent. Sorry, I needed a sip of drink before I started coughing. Basically, nobody in their right minds would believe this outfit because he said he needed a special, outfit for this raid. And he goes, but his sister goes, but I have a lot of money. Of course, the hooker swallowed for it, One prostitute base, one of them says that, well, you can have all of us for 150. He immediately rips off the costume, pulls his gun out, and now 5 more arrests have been made. So he throws all the prostitutes in the back with Shawnee and not with Shawnee, but with Tinsel and Sparkle. Shawnee has a bright idea and says, "Hey, now that we have control of the laundromat, why don't Dee Dee and I stay in here and lure out the Johns?" Um, so they all agree to do it. Dwayne goes and waits in the van. Next thing you know, a guy comes in. He's got like the army dress uniform on with the brown button-down shirt and black pants and all that good stuff. And he goes, "I'm just looking for change." Dee Dee immediately takes her dress off and throws it in the washer and tells him she's just doing laundry. Basically, he gives her his money, thinking she's a prostitute, and asks if they could just go in the back. She says it's too crowded back there, and says that she can just do it in the laundromat in front of everyone. Um, so she tricks him into a laundry sack, and they bring him to the van. When Dwayne opens the door, Tinsel just nails him with a fucking tire iron, and all the prostitutes come out. We learned the prostitutes, by the way. We learned they're named the B Girls, is the group that they're named. The B Girls basically all attack Dwayne and Shawnee. Tinsel starts choking Dwayne with a tire iron, and they throw him in the back of the van. The B Girls steal the van to take to the warehouse around the corner. Um, Lost my place. So they decided basically going to take them to the warehouse around the corner to take care of them there. Dee Dee hears this and does nothing. She just runs back inside. And now, for no reason whatsoever, we have a police car responding to something like speeding or something. And then for some reason, it hits the van, and the hooker swerved the van, and that just rolls, lands upside down. And all the hookers just basically all say at the same time, call a tow truck. At the same time, Dee Dee has called up Chuck and tells him she needs his help. Guys, Chuck is still handcuffed to the fucking sink. And apparently he's been there for 3 days. He's got food, cigarettes, and water and things like that. She's basically begging Chuck to come and help her arrest these people and save her friends. And Chuck's like, "Well, what the fuck do you want me to do about it? I'm still handcuffed to the freaking sink." Dee Dee tells him the key was under the phone the entire time, and that she thought he would have found it by now. He unlocks himself, and he just leaves the apartment. Dee Dee's waiting outside. Oh, I'm sorry. Dee Dee tells Chuck not to let her down. For some reason, he agrees. No reason whatsoever, he agrees to help. Meanwhile, the van is upright and parked in front of a warehouse with very little damage. Dee Dee shows up. Yeah, that's weird. We just watched it roll over in the movie, and now it's just upright and no damage or anything like that. Dee Dee shows up and stands, looking inside the door. Before she could do anything, Chuck shows up. We go inside, and Dwayne and Shawnee are tied up and being guarded by the drug dealer from the beginning of the movie, Snake. Dee Dee and Chuck say they love each other before going to save her friends. Dee Dee and Chuck basically both say, Dee Dee's like, this is only coming from I'm only really, really, really attracted to you, but I love you. And Chuck says, I love you too. And they decide now is a good time to give each other a little peck and go inside and save the day. Snake tells Dwayne and Shawnee that the Queen Bee will see them now. They open the door, and Dee Dee tells Chuck basically they're out to go back to Dee Dee and Chuck. They open the door to go in, and Dee Dee just tells Chuck to be quiet and wait. All the hookers come around the corner with a woman with some of the largest hair I've ever seen. She says that she says they didn't think about. They don't think about it. She says they didn't think they would ever be going up against the Queen Bee, and Shawnee's like, "Who? The Queen Bee." Dwayne asks, "Should we know you?" And it's about this time that I realized that the Queen Bee has a plastic jar of honey and a stinger on the back of her dress. That's just weird. It's not even a bear jar either. She's the Queen Bee and the person who runs all of the prostitution and drug rings, and she gets mad and yells at the hookers, saying she thought they were cops. Shawnee tells Queen Bee that they are still students, and Queen Bee and the drug dealer have a huge laugh at this. People cost. Basically, he says that their people cost him $1,000, and he's going to take it out of their hides. Quarterback, I'm sorry, quarterback. Good lord, I wrote QB down here, guys. Queen Bee says their police force have sent 5 undercovers into her ring as prostitutes, and they haven't been seen since. Queen Bee says she sent the undercovers overseas into white slavery. She wants to make Dwayne an overseer, but first they'd have to castrate him. Chuck tells Dee Dee that they need to call the police in because they can't arrest the entire ring by themselves. Dee Dee basically tells him has him record his voice doing the police chief, doing the, come out with your hands up and things like that. She sets the recorder, and she just sets the recorder down. Doesn't even bring him with her. Sets the recorder down and says, "We have to go get to our spots before the trailer plays." Um, Queen Bee says to make sure to poke holes in the crates this time so that these two don't suffocate like the last group. The recording plays telling the hookers they are under arrest, all that good stuff. Queen Bee says it's a trick and that they wouldn't shoot while they have hostages. Dee Dee pulls lipstick out, and it's the lipstick that simulates the gunfire, so it sounds like guns are going off all over the place. The Bee girls all duck, and Queen Bee says, "I forgot, they're rookies. Don't shoot at anything." Queen Bee says this warehouse is a web of mazes, and they'll never be able to find them. Dee Dee presses the siren throat spray, and you hear the siren going off. The group begins running through the warehouse. Dee Dee and Chuck show up. They untie Dwayne and Shawnee and go after the Bee girls. I am just now noticing a clothesline with $100 bills hanging off of it. The Queen Bee and the Bee girls get lost, and one say, they look at, and one look, I think it's Tinsel that looks at Queen Bee and says, "This was a maze of honeycombs." Or I thought you said it was a maze of honeycombs. Queen Bee tells her she's the Queen Bee, not the maze keeper. So basically, they can't find their way out of the warehouse. Shawnee gets separated. Basically, she gets separate from the group before the Queen Bee and her girls got there. She runs straight into the drug dealer who pulls a gun on her. He goes, "What are you going to do about this now?" So she takes her top down, and basically the drug dealer's like, Dwayne attacks from behind. He punches the drug dealer a couple of times, and the drug dealer just shakes his head no at him. Shawnee pulls her top back up and reminds Dwayne of the pressure points and basically Dwayne just kicks the shit out of the drug dealer in the nuts. He just destroys his nuts, which apparently has knocked him out. Sparkle gets separated from the group and sees Chuck. She sees Chuck and she recognizes Chuck from his movies as she's like just in like what's the best word? Infatuated. She's in love, in lust with Chuck. Um, hey, I remember all your movies, all that good stuff. And she basically tells Chuck that for him it's free. Well, Sparkle gets Chuck brings out a pair of handcuffs and ends up cuffing Sparkle, and he tells her to wait there until they arrest the rest of the group. He walks away, and then the B girls immediately reappear, and she basically walks with them, still handcuffed. B girls then walk up on the dealer, on a Snake, who gets yelled at by Queen Bee. Where Snake says when that girl took off her blouse, it had an effect that he had never experienced before. Dee Dee and Chuck go out. Basically, they end up leaving the warehouse, and it's fucking daytime now. All of a sudden, apparently they've been in this warehouse all night long. Queen Bee and the B girls exit. They find that they open door that Chuck and Dee Dee just went out of, and they just decided to go out through that door. And all of a sudden, they all just climb into the van for no reason whatsoever. They just all climb in, and then they're like, "Wait a minute." Queen Bee says something's wrong, and then the door is shut, and Dee Dee locks him in the van, and Chuck starts to drive away. Doesn't drive very far, because Dwayne and Shawnee now meet outside, and it's 7 a.m., and the van is still parked there. So they get in the van, and they race to turn in the 9 people they are arresting before graduation. Let's not forget they're supposed to have 10. We cut to just a random sandy lot, almost like a park or something, where the class is dressed in light blue graduation robes, and nobody, not even the family, is there to watch. Like, there's nobody there watching. The only 2 people on the stage are Mrs. Devonshire and the chief of police. And how hard would it have been to get some freaking people just to stand there and watch and cheer? Like, how hard would it have been to get the group of extras together for that? That really just doesn't sound that hard. Mrs. Devonshire plays the graduation song on a record player as basically all the women file into their wooden park benches for their graduation. Mrs. Devonshire she makes a speech about graduating the Vice Academy. It's basically what you would expect to hear. She then introduces Police Chief Wells to say a few words. The chief says how proud of his daughter he is of his daughter. As all of a sudden the van comes speeding into the graduation. And the girls scatter because the van almost hits the thing. And at some point while they're scattering, Holly's gown gets ripped off and she's standing there in white lingerie. Let's also not forget that Shawnee has been in her lingerie for about half an hour now. Shawnee, Dee Dee, and Dwayne all come running out of the van, and Holly tries to stop Dee Dee and yells at her for ruining her father's speech. Dee Dee tells them they're going to want to see this. They go to the back of the van. They open the van's door, and the Queen Bee and the B girls are all yelling at them. Dee Dee tells them they have the confession as to what had happened to the other police officers who went undercover by Queen Bee. Basically, they have her recorded saying that she was shipping them overseas for white slavery. Chief Wells says this is the greatest sting operation ever, and even better than what his own police officers could do. Better than anything his own daughter was capable of doing, which pisses Holly the fuck off. Mrs. Devonshire makes sure to point out that there's only 9 people and not 10. Chief Wells says they should make an exception in this case because the Queen Bee is worth 2 by herself. Mrs. D says they have to do things by the book. So Chuck decides I'll be the 10th arrest. Go ahead and arrest me. I'll be number 10. Mrs. Devonshire tells Chief to please reconsider and that Shawnee can't even keep her clothes on. Of course, Shawnee's still standing there in her lingerie. The chief says this is the biggest bust since the porno group was brought in. And of course, Dee Dee and them said, well, yeah, that was us too. and that they had to let them go. And she's like, well, that's not necessarily true. We had a witness come forward, and we were able to prosecute them. And Mrs. Devonshire's like, oh yeah, I knew I forgot to tell you guys something. Cherry Pop then walks up in a dress and no bruises. The girls are happy to see her. They give her a big hug. Cherry Pop says her exercise video just went platinum. They all celebrate. Chief Wells says the arrest quota is now 20, and that's the highest in Academy history, which can only mean one thing: Dwayne, Shawnee, and Dee Dee are the valedictorians. On stage, they go back to the graduation. Now Dee Dee, Shawnee, and Dwayne are all in their graduation robes. The three of them are on the stage. Holly's pouting in her chair on her bench by herself. They all get their badges and diplomas, and Dwayne looks at Mrs. D and goes, how does it feel to know that we are graduating? There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. So naturally, she just knees him in the dick. And he goes down again. Chuck goes to hug Cherry Pop, as a celebration, and Holly's sitting between them. So he shoves Holly up to the ground, and they hug. Chuck asks if there's really money in exercise tapes. And Cherry says, oh, yeah, there's a ton of money in this. I'll be able to retire by the time I'm 18. Chief Wells and Mrs. Devonshire get into the van to take the Queen Bee and the B girls to jail. Chief tells Mrs. Devonshire that her prize pupils will be working side by side with her. Mrs. Devonshire really doesn't like that idea, but says, sure, we'll make great partners. Everyone is still celebrating their graduation except Holly, who's sitting there looking pissy. The movie ends with all of them throwing their caps in the air, roll credits, because it was just the typical happy ending you expect in a movie like this. But there you go. There you have it. There is Vice Academy, brought to you by the Bloody Binge. We'll go here in a minute, and we'll do reviews. Trying to get to this part. The movie was released on June 8th, 1989. Filming locations were pretty much in Arleta, Los Angeles, California, the Police Academy training field. Production company is Rick Sloan Productions. Nothing on here about money. Like how much money, what the budget was, and how much they made, and everything like that. Trivia. The scene with the hookers being arrested was shot without permits on Hollywood Boulevard. So basically, apparently, when the scenes when they're arresting Tinsel and Sparkle, the scene they did not have permits to shoot those. They didn't get stopped. So since this film was made on a very low budget, the actresses who portray the hookers in the picture wore their own costumes for their roles. So yeah, that's I guess apparently all these girls just like hookers all all the time. Christian Barr is an alias. The actress who portrayed Cherry Pop was in fact Allison Barron, who appeared alongside Linnea Quigley in a number of films. Ginger Lynn drove her own car in the opening scene of the movie, so that was her own personal car at the time. And this is the first mainstream film for adult star Ginger Lynn. Connections, of course, Linnea Quigley's horror workout would come out the next year. There's a lot of goops in me. I'm not even going to read all these because we noticed. I think we noticed a lot of them. Like I said, there are 6 Vice Academy movies. I think only part 1 and part 2 have Linnea. Part 2 has Linnea Quigley and Holly Wells in it again. And that seems to be the only returning cast. well, Mark Richardson, who played the casting director and apparently plays Horace in the next one. So yeah, the only returning cast really is Ginger Lynn, basically the Ginger Lynn and Linnea Quigley and Mrs. Devonshire comes in part 2. By part 3, we are still looking at Ginger Lynn, as Holly Wells. So Ginger Lynn comes back for the third one. Really, again, the only other returning person is Mark Richardson playing another character. Per I don't. It's part 4. Part 4, we have. Yeah, part 4 is basically the first one without anybody except for Mrs. Devonshire, that doesn't return from the first movie. But yeah, it's it's something that I grew up watching and that I love. I used to absolutely love USA Up All Night. It was one of my favorite things to watch. But let's go on to the review. So, I enjoyed this movie as a kid. Needless to say, as a 12 or 13-year-old kid watching this movie, there was a lot of TNA action, a lot of sex. Hormones are overrun. So back then, I would have given it like 10 out of 10. But now I'm only doing a 5-star review. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to give it 3.7. I'll give it a 3.7 prostitutes out of 5. How about that? Because it's a good movie. It's a fun movie to watch. It's still, to me, it holds up. I didn't, of course, I don't get those, the feelings I did 30 years ago now when I was a teenager. So basically, I didn't get those feelings I did back in like 1991, 92 when I first watched it. It's fun to watch, all that good stuff. So I mean, yeah, give it a shot. It's a good comedy, got some goofiness to it, and basically, it's your typical 80s sex comedy, I guess you could call it. You can. Oh, I meant to tell you. You can also to watch this. You can pretty much find it streaming most places. Definitely on Tubi. I watched it on Troma Now. I believe you can still rent it, or not rent it, but stream it on Amazon, and I believe it said Hulu. I'm not sure about Hulu though. Definitely Tubi or Troma Now. Take a look at it, watch it. I know Tubi and Troma both have all 6 movies, so if you're interested, watch it then. That's going to do it for this week's episode. You can find me at Bloody Binge Movie Podcast on Facebook, on X, and on YouTube. You can also stream the audio version of this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and pretty much most places you can find podcasts at. If you are interested in tuning into the live version of the podcast, we try to do this every Friday. My goal is to do it by 4:00. Again, circumstances today made us have to push it back a little bit, but we got it done. But if you're looking for the video portion where you can see the trailers and everything being played, tune in on Fridays, right about 4:00. We're gonna, like I said, right now the plan is to do every other Friday, basically every other Friday is a movie, and then the Fridays that aren't Bloody Binge, we're gonna try to do Shivers. That might change to a once a month for Shivers. Keep an eye out on the Twitter, X, Facebook pages, and to see what movies we're going to do next, and to see if Shivers is going to make a return next week or once a month. I've got a couple of episodes planned for Shivers, mainly Gettysburg. I want to do Gettysburg, and I want to do the Dayton Christmas killings. As well as a few other ghost stories out there that a lot of people don't. I'm trying to do ones that haven't been covered by, Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, and a lot of other paranormal podcasts out there. But definitely tune in every Friday, 4 o'clock. If you can't make it, you can always watch the replays on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. You can also download, like I said before, you can download the episodes off of Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Let me know in some comments of these videos, movies you want to see me do, see us talk about, see me do. We will eventually get to Moving Violations. Trust me, I will do that movie. I love that movie. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon, so keep tuning in. Oh, you can also find me every other Wednesday. We just did an episode this past Wednesday. You can find me every other Wednesday on the Owl Light Network, Mats and Monsters, talking about wrestling with some friends. Definitely tune into that as well. Every other Wednesday on the Owl Light Network. You can find them on the Owl Light Network on YouTube, on Facebook, and you can always tune into the episodes there. So thank you once again, everybody. It's been a fun time tonight. We're gonna go ahead and go out with some more USA Up All Night.
Everybody, and welcome to another edition of USA Up All Night. I'm your bedtime buddy, Rhonda, and have I got a terrific evening planned for you. Showgirls rollerblading in the nude? No better. I'm taking you to Fangoria, the #1 Monster Magazine's horror party. This Hollywood party should have plenty of gruesome makeup and creepy costumes. And that's just the agents. Tonight is also special because we have a Linnea Quigley Film Festival just for you. We'll be showing 2 of Linnea's most popular films, Vice and Vice Academy 2. Plus, we'll be joining Linnea at the horror party. You know, if all Vice squads had women who look like Linnea on their side, crime would be cleaned up in a Leavenworth minute. After all, criminals would probably turn themselves in to get frisked by Linnea and her friends. Oh, well, it's time for us to go to our first film because I've got to change it to something more appropriate for our horror party. Something that will scare you all. Oh, I know. I'll dress up as a nun. That should do it. I'm sorry, Mrs. Raisin. Your husband's got to go. He is under arrest. You're out of here, pal, all right, for being obsolete. Oh, okay, audience. So straighten up there. It's Officer Rhonda reporting for duty. Miss Devonshire and the cadet officers have put me in the mood for a nice undercover arrest. I wonder who's left at the PTL club. Hello, 911, Officer Rhonda. How may I serve you? Oh, hi, Linnea. Yeah, I'm just about ready to go to meet you at the Fangoria horror party. What? Well, I thought you were going to bring the handcuffs. No, don't worry about it. I've got them in every color you could possibly want or need. See you in a bit. Bye. Okay, pal, you're out of here. You can visit them on visiting day. Let's go. USA Up All Night and Fangoria's horror party. Things are really frightening here. You know, if you look around, you'll see a lot of scary and gruesome people. I mean, doesn't it look like something from your worst nightmare? Oh, Linnea, quickly come over here. You don't look like you're from any scary film. You look like you belong in a parade of dreams. Our audience dreams. No, wait, just tell me, though. We're dressed alike. You found out my designer, and you wore. It's Linnea Quigley Vice Academy night is what it is.
Vice Academy night.
But it is quite a parade of gruesome people. What do you think?
Well, I hate to miss a parade of men, even if they are monsters.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Well, let's go back to our film, Vice Academy. Look, Linnea, check this guy out. His hair is like molting. Can we get your Can we get your that's not the kind of nose job I want. We'll be back. Yow, guy, bad breath. Really bad. Oh, hi. It's Armando Creeper over there. How you doing, Armando? Love the nails. It's got Rhonda's beat tonight. Anyway, how about the makeup on those gals in our film Vice Academy? I think they kind of look like they belong here at the Fangoria Horror Party. Okay, you guys, let's go to commercial, and while you're gone, I'll see if I can find that really scary monster. Has anyone seen the Richard Simmons monster? We'll be back. Here on USA, up all night at the incredible Fangoria Horror Party. Well, you know, Linnea, it is right after Christmas, but we have that Christmas spirit because in LA, anything crazy can happen like these people. Aren't they incredible? Now, we have plenty of scary monsters, but we also have the most incredible star here of Vice Academy, Linnea Quigley, and Vice Academy 2 also. Now, Linnea, we're going back to our film, but I want to know, tell me, what's going to happen next?
Well, you're going to see a bunch of girls dressed like hookers running down the street.
Oh, come on. How do you know that?
Well, because almost every scene in the movie has that.
Oh, Linnea, you heard it here first from Linnea Quigley. Now, you guys go back for more red lipsticks and short skirts on USA Up All Night. We've done our job, and we have our sticks. Watch it.
Yeah. Anybody want to be arrested?
Hiya, kids. We're back with USA Up All Night, and just like Dee Dee and Shawnee in our film, we're seeing plenty of action here at Fangoria Horror Party. What do you think about that, Linnea? Oh my God! Help! Police! Police! Oh, I am one. I'm coming. I'm coming. You guys go to commercial. I'm coming, Linnea. Here I come. Ron here, and welcome back to USA Up All Night at Fangoria Horror Party. We're having a great time, but look around, Linnea, at these creepy, sleazy characters. Doesn't it make you just want to turn in your SAG card?
Yeah, and wait till you see the next scene from Vice Academy. These guys are an improvement over the characters who play the porn producers.
And speaking of producers, you're probably wondering who this gentleman is sitting in the middle. No, not sleazy, the incredible Joe Dante, producer. No, but producer, director of The Howling
and Gremlins 1 and 2.
Classics.
Now, Joe, what is it like to be an incredible director and directing these incredible actors and actresses?
Well, the best thing is it gets you into situations like this.
Possibly the most serious thing you've ever done, isn't it?
Being here right now, yes. Yes.
You're just overwhelmed with this.
I am, and USA is my favorite network because it's got the little USA in the corner, so you can always tell what you're watching.
Could you just do like a little Oscar acceptance speech? You know, we're a movie show. What would it be like? What would you say?
I did it all myself.
Good for you, Joe.
Rhonda, maybe he can put us in one of his movies.
I say that you know what? We're cops tonight. Let's take him in, because you know why? Has he used us?
No, he hasn't used us.
I say that we take him in, arrest him, bring him to an all-night casting session until he does. What do you say?
Yeah, that's a felony, Joe. You're under arrest.
Do you have anything to say? Your last word?
Doesn't sound bad.
Thanks. Let's go back to Vice Academy. And while you're gone, Linnea and I will try to make this arrest.
Rhonda.
I've got him. Let's go. Come on. You're out of here, pal. We're back here at Fangoria Horror Party, and we're on USA. Yeah, with the monsters. It's Run here at USA, up all night at the Fangoria Horror Party. And look who I found, my very good friend Gilbert Gottfried. I'm just going to give him a little nibble. Gee, I don't know how to say this, Gilbert, but you kind of look like a butthead tonight. Anyway, you are the man responsible for creating all these things. This is Screaming Man George. Mad. You are mad. Wait. Some of your creations, we have Gary Shandling, we have Roseanne Barr. No. Tell us about some of these incredible creations, because you are mad.
Yes, well, this is